Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Brownback. And my name is Almazbek. I come from Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan located in Central Asia. But since I came here, I was in Northern Iowa as a visiting fellow. Then before that, I was in Poland, in Warsaw, at Vistula University. I worked there for 1.5 years. And before it, I studied in Germany. And so today, I'll talk about Fethullah Gulen's pedagogical ideas and Gulen movement on education. So I had an opportunity to experience Gulen movement's educational approach from Gulen-inspired schools that I studied in Kyrgyzstan, in Gulen-inspired school in Naryn city, that located in southeast part of Kyrgyzstan. After that, after later on my graduation, I had an opportunity to experience such an education process from different angle. This time being an educator in Gulen-inspired school in Bishkek city, it's capital of Kyrgyzstan, as well as in Johannesburg in South Africa, and then also in Turkey. Also, I studied Gulen's pedagogical ideas academically and received my Ph.D. in this field. So, and I would like to continue my presentation by asking a question. So, who is Gulen? Fethullah Gulen is the popular Turkish Muslim scholar, educational activist, and opinion leader, and preacher emeritus. Was born in 1941 in Turkey, Erzurum province in Turkey, where he attended a public elementary school for 3 years. And after his father was appointed to village without an elementary school, Gulen became responsible for his own education. And in 1956, he passed the exam administered by Turkish State's Directorate of Religious and was awarded a state's preacher's license. And he has begun to preach and teach in Edirne, the west part of Turkey. And he continued to deepen his knowledge of Islamic tradition. And he studied also natural science and read widely the Western and Eastern philosophy that we can see in his writings later. So in 1970s, Fethullah Gulen advocated for proportional representation in education. The Turkey's educational institutions had long favored the wealthier students from urban centers. At that time, Turkey had some problems with education, big problems. So he advocated new innovative school models to Turkey. But through the establishment of scholarships, tutoring centers, and student hostels, Fethullah Gulen was able to inspire the entrepreneurs and many volunteers who helped the disenfranchised and financially disadvantaged rural students and get an access to education, thereby transforming the social landscape in Turkey. In the 1980s and 1990s, Fethullah Gulen rejuvenated the Turkish Muslim tradition of interfaith dialogue, which had been forgotten amidst the troublesome years of the early 20th century and has not notably taken pro-democracy, pro-science, non-violent stance at critical junctures in Turkey's history. So in his writings, Gulen speaks of living so that others may live. This is like a motto, and of sharing the suffering of humans in every corner of the world. His ideal of service and insistence on education has inspired millions of volunteers from all over the world and take the responsibility for the well-being of their world engaging in public life. So in Turkey, the influx of civic institutions inspired by Gulen's message has been referred to as a Gulen movement, and many other people saying as a Hizmet movement. Hizmet means in Turkish service, also service movement. These volunteers now run tutoring centers, schools, colleges, hospitals, relief organizations, publishing houses, and media institutions in all over the more than 150 countries. But this year, we heard that it's more over the 170 countries. Just in 16 countries, there is no volunteers from Gulen movement. But this year, also they said they will go to these countries. So Gulen movement has developed into a global faith-based and social movement in conflict-ridden regions such as Philippines, Macedonia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Bosnia. Hundreds of Gulen-inspired schools have become bastions of interreligious and interethnic harmony, while relief organizations affiliated with the Gulen movement have been instrumental in bringing aid to disaster victims in Southeast Africa. Now, Mr. Gulen is living in Pennsylvania in United States. So he was one of the topic for 60 Minutes program also last year. Also, we have a short video for 2 minutes. Let's watch it and continue our program.
Conferences on Gulen and his movement are held at institutes all around the world, and the educational volunteers who are inspired by Gulen have become themes to be evaluated in important organizations. The Gulen movement has an original structure which addresses the development of personal traits and encourages the unification of the parts of the society. There comes out a collective identity from these beautiful traits. The movement stresses education, therefore no one is left behind in the society. The movement also aims for interfaith dialogue between civilizations. This lifestyle, which brings tolerance and dialogue, is welcomed wherever the volunteers go. Academics have put Gulen's understanding of Islam and his contributions to peace under the microscope. I'm a Christian, not a Muslim, but love and peace that Fethullah Gulen talks about are also concepts that I know from my religious experiences. I must say that it is the same God who taught these values to Christians and Muslims. Therefore, it is so natural that we should be in dialogue. The Western world has striking remarks about the Turkish schools all over the world. The Gulen movement has become a transnational faith-based actor originating from Turkey with a universal educational and interfaith agenda leading to new international elite. The movement also contributes positively to the relations between the states. These remarks signal that Gulen's thoughts and his world perception will continue to receive much attention. Gulen's becoming number one among the 100 intellectuals who are living and still active in public life is referred to as an important indicator.
So, and also
also known as the service, is one of the largest social movements in the world. And this weekend in Washington, D.C. is an international symposium.
So and this was my second video. And second question is, what's the Gulen movement now? The Gulen movement is, as I said, Hizmet movement in Turkish, is a worldwide civic initiative rooted in the spiritual and humanistic tradition of Islam and inspired by ideas and activism of Fethullah Gulen. And Gulen movement is a faith-inspired, non-political, cultural, and educational movement whose basic principles stem from Islam's universal values such as love of the creation, sympathy for the fellow human, compassion, and altruism. The movement is not a governmental or state-sponsored organization. It focuses on the betterment of the individual toward a positive change of society. The movement is distinguished for its supports of democracy, its openness to globalization. As you see, this movement is all over the world. And its progressiveness in integrating tradition with modernity and its humanistic outlook. Gulen describes its movement of people united around high human values and disapproves of the attribution of the movement to his name. The base of the movement are diverse service projects that are initiated, funded, and conducted by people who are motivated to various extents by Gulen's humanitarian discourse. Ranging from private schools to poverty aid programs, these projects are independent of each other in operational terms, so the movement has no hierarchical structure. The Gulen movement has paved an exemplary way of working together to overcome the problems of humankind, regardless of religious, ethnic, or cultural differences. the movement sets a precedent not only with the activists, but it's also through its ways of generating financial support, thanks to its revivification of the Islamic values of giving and hospitality. Research shows that the average financial contribution of participants in the Gulen movements to service is about more than 10%. It's saying research of Helen Rosa above from Rice University in Houston. So she also researched Gulen movement resource. And although the movement's origins are tied to Turkish Muslim identity, the Gulen movement is not active as a non-Muslim as Muslim countries, and attracts participants of diverse faiths and cultures, as you saw from video. The explanation for this, as sociologist Helen Rose above that I mentioned writes, is that the infrastructure of the movement in terms of globalization, leadership, volunteers, financial donors, and the inspiration behind the movement is transported by the Turkish diaspora before, and Turkish immigrants settling in countries all over the world as students, professionals, and businessmen. The result is the movement is now transnational in its outreach and impact. We can say Gulen movement volunteers, followers showed how to serve the humanity in Turkey. After that, they went to all over the world, as we say, to over more than 150 countries. There, the students that educated by these Gulen followers, they learned their principles, and they are trying to do these services for humanity for themselves. For example, in Turkey, they opened, as an example, one newspaper, Zaman. This is the very largest, largest newspaper in Turkey. Now, for example, in Kyrgyzstan, we have our newspaper, for example. They saw just an example, and all over the world, they are trying to do these services for themselves. And also, we had second video. It's also just 1 minute. This symposium in Washington, D.C. last month, and also I attended there as a speaker. So please.
Service is one of the largest social movements in the world, and this weekend in Washington, D.C. is an international symposium for the Hizmet movement and peace building for global cases. Academics and scientists from more than 20 countries presented topics covering the impact of the Hizmet movement to world peace. The symposium held several seminars and discussed peace-building efforts in third world countries, as well as how to expand social work in America.
But you have to be a little bit more altruistic, a little bit more conscious of others than yourselves, and the Hizmet movement is all about that.
Mr. Fethullah Gulen started the movement and devoted his entire life to do Hizmet. He's also known as a respected teacher and is Turkish by nationality, a thinker, an author, a preacher, and an intellectual.
Just service, building schools and teaching, building hospitals and healing, building relief centers, dialogue centers, and getting the message out.
The Hizmet movement has established hundreds of educational organizations and institutions in over 140 countries.
The Hizmet movement for the public, so they are really welcome to ask questions, no kind of questions.
Over the past decade, Kimse Yokmo, translated as "Is anyone there?", has devoted one of the most expansive Hizmet work globally, providing aid, health services, and education to the poor.
In case there is a disaster in part of the world, we are contacting with our volunteers in that country, and then we are trying to realize what is the need, and then we are deciding what to do together.
This service movement depends on how people work together to accomplish greater goals. The Hizmet movement integrates spiritual development with social work, and this symposium demonstrated it successfully inspires individuals to spread education, reduce poverty, and revitalize the faith within their own communities. Yasmin Mahfouz, Ebru News.
So, and there are also some values of this movement. Gulen teachings, which in the movement put into practice, are based on the belief that as we close the gap between the East and West, the poor and the wealthy, the educated and less educated, etc. So we will have a peaceful and prosperous world where everybody respects and accepts each other as they are. And some values from Gulen's thoughts are love and tolerance, education, bringing up the young, and freedom and democracy, also art, humanity and identity, environment and nature are the most important values. So about what are they doing? We can say their works in three types. For example, first one is relief efforts. About relief of efforts, as you see, Kimse Yok Mu is the most important organization of this movement, and they are helping, supporting to places, victim places that, for example, they help to Somalia, to Haiti. Also, at the moment, they are helping to Philippines. And this is the largest organization. They built up more than 20 schools over the world. One of them, for example, in Somalia. And so there are several Gulen-inspired relief organizations also in the United States. For example, Helping Hands Relief Foundation, established in 2008 in New Jersey. For example, one of them in Germany, Time to Help organization. Also, we have one in our country, in Kyrgyzstan, Elim Barsıngu, for example. There are also several hospitals in the world that founded by Gulen-inspired volunteers or entrepreneurs and doctors. These high-tech modern hospitals provide top-notch care in the atmosphere that respects the patients as human beings and provides sponsorship for economically disadvantaged citizens. For example, this is one organization from Istanbul. They went to Somalia, and they are making surveys for cataract there. And they helped to more than 1,000 people cataract just for Somalia. Also, they had programs in Niger, in Afghanistan. Also, they were most countries. Also, they built up hospitals in Somalia, in Kazakhstan, in Iraq, also in Turkey, also Haiti after the earthquake. And the second main work of this movement is dialogue. The compassion and love are centered concepts of Fethullah Gulen's teachings. He advocates tolerance and forgiveness as human values and believes peaceful coexistence is possible. Therefore, the movement inspired around these lofty teachings always promotes dialogue among the followers of various faiths, religions, philosophies, and political views. The Gulen movement adopts this peaceful coexistence model for its activities as well. As a result, the Gulen movement organized a number of events ranging from panel discussions to dialogue dinners and to conferences. For example, this picture from the meeting with Pope John Paul II in Rome, when he first met with a Christian leader in Vatican, and it was a sensation in Muslim world. Or how can one Islamic leader meet with a Christian leader? So, but after 10 years, for example, the criticizers understood it's very important to have a dialogue between cultures, between nations, between faith. And after that, he also met with New York Cardinal O'Connor, also with Jewish leaders. So, and this dialogue is now example for all over the world. And third and main work of this movement is on education. Education is the heart and soul of the movement. More than 1,000 secular educational institutions exist in more 170 countries. In 150 countries, there are more than 1,000 schools, but all general, more than 2,000 educational institutions all over the world. For example, this building is from Cambodia. This is University Zaman from Cambodia, also Gulen-inspired university. This is Ishik University in Iraq. This is also a very high quality university, new open. This school is from Somalia. And this school, when I was student in Germany, I was intern in this school. This is private school in Stuttgart in Germany. Also, this is Gulen-inspired school. And this school is in Ankara, as I mentioned at the beginning of my speech. I worked in Turkey for 1 year, and this school that I worked in Ankara. This is Samanyalu school. And there is also principles, Fethullah Gulen's educational principles, and what are they? First of them, first principle is synthesis of heart and mind, or conscience with logic. It represents an essential connection between spirituality and intellectual training. Gulen says shortcomings of the modern society are caused by the gap between spiritual knowledge and scientific view, and separation of heart and mind. So during my PhD, I have conducted survey encounters of Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan in Central Asia in 2011. The survey revealed that 65% of participants said that the reason they applied to decide to study at their schools of admitting their children to Gulen-inspired schools was because the importance of invested in moral and ethical values that are taught at Gulen schools rather than the quality of the scientific teachings. And second principle is humanism principle. Humanism is the fundamental reason that it presents in our project of activity of Gulen movements, including, of course, on education. Such benevolent ideas are welcomed in many parts of the world. For example, we can see resemblance of Gulen's ideas with the ideas and practice with, for example, Kamensky, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Locke, Makarenko, for example, Pestalozzi, and so who were also advocating education of children and sought humanism. Third principle of Gulen is representation. Actions speak louder than words has become the motto for teachers in Gulen-inspired schools. These teachers are instrumental factor that lies in the core of education approach based on Fethullah Gulen's ideas. Teachers not only should be capable to teach the subject of their proficiency, but also represent the core values such as kindness, honesty, generosity, respect, compassion, loyalty, dedication, and friendship. For example, when I was accepted to Naryn Kyrgyz Turkish high school in 1994, I was also wondering why these well-educated teachers came from Turkey to really difficult conditions to work, because after the collapse of Soviet Union, there was economical problems in Soviet Union, old Soviet Union. And we were wondering why they came to insignificant salary and to work here. What inspired them to come to Central Asia in these difficult situations. And administration and teachers also created sincere warm atmosphere around the school campus. Also, we could see that our school administrator principal was breaking down the frozen schoolyard, the ice, for example, negative 35, 40 Fahrenheit. And it was wondering us and made us appreciate the compassion and altruism. And fourth principle is variation principle in this school. Students have opportunity to select the field to study to which they have inclination, whether it's qualitative or quantitative. It's important to take into account the cultural background and negative language to form classes that will create the optimal environment for the freshman students. For example, students who were coming from Russian language-based schools, they can continue their education on Russian, for example. They have separate classes for Russian speakers. And fifth one is principle equal education opportunity and social harmony. This is important. Regardless of ethnic origins, religious views, political affiliation, social status, cultural difference, and geographic locations, students are welcome to study at these schools having equal opportunities. For example, we have one valley, Fergana. It's located between Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. It's a very critical and ethnical place. So Gulen-inspired schools provide not only great opportunity to receive high-quality education, but also act as a platform that eradicate the stereotypes and xenophobia by promoting dialogue, amity, and mutual understanding. From these activities, we can see Gulen's Peace Island projects. He has a project at Peace Island to build up the Peace Islands by education. So, for example, I can give one example from Tokmok city. Tokmok is a city in Kyrgyzstan. There is a Gulen-inspired school in Tokmok, and at that school, in one class, we have 24 students, but there are 11 different nations in one class. And it's there we can see good harmony, for example. And also sixth one is social cooperation. Social cooperation. Education approach based on Gulen ideas is not constrained within the walls of the school. According to Gulen, in order to achieve success in education, it's important to have comprehensive approach to include various members of society into educational process. He states that important triangle should be established such as parent, sponsor, and teacher. In other words, every part of society, such as policymakers, government officials, and students, parents, businessmen, public leaders, should be involved into this great social project of education. And seventh one is integration of local dynamics. It's another important Gulen's idea to respect national features, customs, and traditions, alongside with aspiring their contributions to global civilization and advancing by ideas of humanity, tolerance, patience, and endurance. Education process offered by Gulen is in harmony and accordance to the national educational programs in these countries. The fact that teachers inspired by Gulen's ideas and don't come up with a certain unique know-how approach, on the contrary, that adopt the national educational curriculum of the host country makes such activities. And they are following the curriculum of the host countries. And eighth one is absence of political ideology. It's well known that education process doesn't have any political aims, political ideology. And the last one is ethno-pedagogical principle. For example, we have thinkers and social leaders like Yusuf Balasagin, Mevlana Rumi, maybe you heard him, or Ahmet Yesevi. He is very important in Kazakhstan, for example. It's only relevant to Central Asia, but also each country. So, renowned scholar from New York University, Jill Carroll, compared Fethullah Gulen's idea with Plato, Confucius, and Socrates. So finding similar visions on humanism and human values. Due to this similarity of the vision on the human Gulen ideas have received global acceptance. In fact, since humanism-centered Gulen's pedagogical ideas are in accordance with the local prominent intellectuals in the countries hosting Gulen-inspired schools, such schools and ideas and principles they represent were kindly received by local elites and population. So I'd like to sum up my main point and what made this Gulen-inspired schools so successful is the notion that sacrifice souls, since Fethullah Gulen strongly advocates selflessness and living for others as the most essential qualities of the builders of peace. So thus Gulen represent the world the great idea of global peace ordered by serving humanity for others. So thank you very much.